Guys, it's Dwight. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're having a great day. So, relaxing this afternoon. I finished a pour. It's gonna have to sit for a day or two to cure before I can get back to it and probably do a few touch-ups before we're completely done. But I wanted to say a couple of things about the paint that I used today, primarily Artist Loft Soft Body White. I know there's a lot of talk out there about cell activators, and there's Amsterdam paints I hear. Also, of course, using silicone or satin enamels or anything else that you can add to your paints. I use Artist Loft Soft Body White with Floetrol. I find that American Floetrol works really, really well in creating the cells and the pearls that show up on my paintings. I think I mentioned that before in the last or one before that video. I'm not quite sure when I said that, but I use it a lot. In today's pour, I used about 16 ounces. That's a lot. And it really did interact well. And again, you'll see that when you look at the walkthrough. The other thing I wanted to mention is I'm really excited that on January 10th, I have a double opening. What does that mean? Well, at the gallery that I work at, volunteer at, but also show at, I'm going to be in the 100 Artist Show. That's going to be Friday, January 10th here in Baltimore. And then that same night is the debut of my own space in the gallery. So I've been lucky enough to be able to have my own space to hang my own artwork. So I'm really excited about that. I will do my best to have some pictures and maybe even a video of my journey that evening. And we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Okay, friends, sit back and I'll show you the paints that I've picked today in the order that I'm going to be pouring them. Okay, guys, here we are back in my studio. I'm sitting here in front of a 24 by 36 canvas, gallery wrapped level 3, as you can tell by the thick edge there. This is a pour over. I wasn't too happy with the composition of the previous pour, and the colors didn't quite work as well. So I'm going a little bit more neutral today. I have an idea in mind of what I would like to create, and so fingers crossed that we can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my paints right now, and I'm going to be pouring them in this order. So we'll start down here. This is Artist Loft Soft Body White. Next to that is Champagne Gold. This is Rich Espresso with Champagne Gold. Copper, again with Champagne Gold. And this is Rich Espresso with a little bit of copper. And then this sort of off-white cream color is basically Artist Loft Soft Body White. And I put a little bit of Rich Espresso. Now, Rich Espresso is, here we go. It is a DecoArt Metallics paint. So these are all pretty much metallics except for my white paints. So there's my dump paint, Artist Loft Soft Body Black, and there is my colander. Now, as a reminder, all the paints that go into the colander are mixed the same way. It's 1 part paint, 2 to 4 parts Floetrol. It just depends on the consistency of the paints. I add just a little bit, like a drizzle of Liquitex pouring medium, and then water to make sure it's thin enough. Now, my dump paint is a little bit different. Now, I still use about 1 part paint, but probably 4 to 5 parts Floetrol and a lot more water because it's a bigger cup. That's a 24-ounce cup. These bigger cups here are 8 ounces, and that's a 4-ounce cup. Okay, guys, I'm going to double check my consistencies, and I'm going to set everything up, and we'll get started. Okay, guys, let's get started. First, I want to say a little hello with my blue jazz hands. And once again, we're going to use a colander, and I typically place it pretty much in the center of the canvas. From this angle, it doesn't quite look like it's in the center. I like to start off with white on the bottom, typically just to provide some lightness, especially if any of my paint colors have some transparency or semi-transparency qualities. So I started with the Champagne Gold. I just used a little bit. I was going to pour the whole thing in, but I decided to save some of it for later. I did a layer of white, and then I did a layer of the darker colors. And at this point, I just wanted to let you know that when you start to layer your paints, the more paint you put in there, the color that's underneath the color you're pouring on top of is going to start pushing out of the holes of the colander. So as you can see, I added the brown, sort of the copper, and then the other brown on top of it, and it's starting to come out of the colander. Now the white, again, pushes some of that paint out more. So I wanted to add just the rest of the gold. And then here's sort of that oatmeal brown cream color. And again, as you can see, it's pushing out the brown and the copper. So go back through and I add the rest of the browns and coppers. And what that does is it pushes out that sort of oatmeal color, as you can see, as it's coming out of the colander. So when I add this final amount of this sort of cream oatmeal color, it'll push out the coppers and browns again. So if you think about that, you can think accordingly to where you want to place the color that you want to be predominant, that shows up predominantly in the composition once it starts to develop. So I mix my paint one more time, clean off the stir stick, get it out of the way. Sometimes when your paints sit for a period of time, they can thicken up a little bit. Before I actually did this pour, I had to add some water to a couple of my cups so that they would be thin enough. So at this point, I am just getting as much paint out of the colander as I can. There's a big puddle in the middle. As you can see, the paint is slowly moving, dispersing on the canvas. Get those final drips off the best I can. Move it out of the way and say a little prayer. And I pick up my dump paint. So watch here. Did you see how the paint sank and then the puddle paint sort of enclosed over it? What that shows me is that when I actually am finished and the paint and the canvas is starting to produce all these beautiful cells, my negative space is going to be small. Now, I don't know the science behind that. It's just through observation. So here we go. Now, this video is not sped up, so I am moving, my normal speed, nice and slow. I want that black paint to cover the color. I always bring it back ever so slightly, bring it over that edge. And then I have the whole side and this back corner to get the paint over. Now you can see the cells starting to form on the edges. And I tilt it back, bring the paint back a little bit more towards center before I put it down. And so at this point, I know that I'm probably going to have a pretty decent pour. As you can see, the color starting to come through. At the same time, I was starting to get a little worried, thinking that that oatmeal brown was going to take over and sort of stifle any of the color. But then I started seeing some of the copper come through. I don't know if you can see it on this picture. So I'm just checking the edges and corners. I'm sure I'm wiping off my hands at this moment. And then I'll get up and I will put it on time lapse. And you will see the copper really come through. Watch as it starts to darken. Now, I didn't see this happening because I was out of the room, but I was really excited when I came back in. Okay, guys, in just a moment, we're going to do the wet walkthrough. Okay, I'm back after about an hour and a half of letting this sit and do what it needs to do. I'm very pleased with this. I do have to say that when I left the room, I was afraid it was going to be more washed out because I was seeing more of this sort of cream and beige color. But then I started seeing the brown and the copper and the gold starting to come through. So I wanted to say something about these sort of lacing, the looks of lacing in these pearls and cells here. That, I believe, most likely is from the Artist Loft Soft Body White. It seems like when I use a lot of that, I get that sort of look. Let me just show you. So let's talk about the negative space, because that's what I do next. It really closed in, which was great. But I want to make it a little bit bigger. I want to have more black space here. So first of all, I will be taking out this edge, probably to right about here, and maybe, I don't know, maybe down here or so. And I'm probably going to take some of these out, believe it or not. I want to open it up a little bit. I don't want it all closed in. So I'm gonna let this dry. I know this is Thanksgiving week, so I'm not quite sure when I'll get this video out, but it should be before Thanksgiving. So yeah, I'll give it a couple days to dry, and then I'll go in and do touch-ups, and we'll talk about that when we are at that point. So let me just show you some close-ups again. Awesome. Okay, stay tuned. More to come. Okay, guys, I'm back. Just a quick update. Everything is dry. And in just a moment, I'm going to start and clean up some of this negative space. I'm still not quite sure how big I'm going to make it and how much I'm going to work on it. So I'll slowly just work on the edges here and then move towards here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a before and after picture so you can get a side-by-side picture and an idea of what it looks like. Instead of looking at the video, I'll have a photo. So yeah, hold on. I'm going to set things up and we're going to start doing the touch-ups. Okay, so let's get started here, sort of cleaning up the negative space. Now, I wanted to start with the edge first, so that way I can kind of see what I'm working with. So as you can see, I'm just sort of taking out that edge and sort of extending it a little bit in each direction. What I'm doing when I'm smearing my thumb on the side there is sort of bringing some of that black paint down the side so it looks like some of it did spill over. So, I'm not really painting it, I'm just sort of smearing it and it looks more intentional. So, yes, I'm working at that end. I'm just sort of cleaning up the detail work around some of those pearls and that edge. As I was working on this and moving forward, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to take a whole lot out. Mostly what I wanted to do was sort of round some of these pearls that butt up against the black negative space. So as you can see, I'm just sort of rounding them, taking off some of the sides of them so that I can make them more round and give a little bit more open space there in the negative space. Now I decided to leave those 3 little pearls in the middle there. I'm going to be painting sort of around that and taking off the edges here, sort of pulling back. In doing this work, you need a paintbrush that has a very nice tip to it. The problem with that is the more you use it, the more you clean your brushes, the tip doesn't stay as pointed. Somebody gave me some advice on that and said that maybe you could also, once you wash your brushes, just sort of dip them in some baby oil. That way it'll have the bristles sort of go back to their original shape. I actually haven't tried that yet, but once I clean these brushes, I'll give it a shot and I'll let you know. So there I am back in there, cleaning it up, taking out some pearls there. Again, just opening up that negative space. Sort of rounding some of these pearls over in that direction at that part of the canvas. I think it's really important when you're doing any type of pours like these, or if you have a space open on your canvas that you consider negative space and maybe even a focal point, is that you make sure that any of the paint or pearls or cells that are around the negative space are sharp, because any open space on your canvas, your eye is going to be directed there. So in this case, I usually use black, so it stands out a lot more up against the color. And I want my pearls to seem crisp and sharp and not sort of faded out or, sort of half of a cell or half of a pearl. Now, those 3 or 4 cells you see that are sort of in the middle of that negative space, I left it there and I wasn't planning on dotting them just because they look like they're floating. But sometimes I will go in and I will highlight the pearls that are around the negative space so that way it continues to brighten that part of the canvas. So I'm just doing my final touch-ups. We're almost done here. And in just a moment, I'll show you the dried results. Okay, guys, here we are. We are done with the touch-ups, and I wanted to sort of walk you through this painting. As you can see, I just did a little bit. I just cleaned it up. I made the edge all black, so it's a little bit more dramatic. Trimmed some of the pearls, left these here. I'll move in here in just a moment, and just sort of open it up a little bit. I think, when we talk about paintings, at least when I talk about them, I talk about focal point. And this painting needs a focal point. So I've got this white through here, which kind of pulls you in, but then the black is sort of the punctuation mark. And I think it's important to think about that in some of your paintings. It's like, where does the eye end up resting on the canvas? Or is there too much going on? So you have to kind of think about that sometimes. And, you know, this has a design to it, has a composition. You can see sort of the like half moon of the color there. Then these spokes that are coming out. The smattering of white throughout here, and some of the gold and the copper. So let me move in again. I'm going to show you close up the dried results. So we have all different types of pearls and cells. This white through here is like lacing. Then you have some of these nice plump cells. And they look sometimes like they're standing off the page or that they have some texture to it. Then you have this trail of white going through. Yeah, so I think it's quite interesting. And so here's up close to the negative space, just sharper and crisper. I am not going to dot any of the pearls. I think that they stand out nicely against the black. Yeah, so I think this is pretty cool. So guys, thanks for watching. So if you're here in America, have a nice Thanksgiving. And everybody else, you guys have a great and wonderful day. And heading into the weekend, have fun. And we'll see you real soon.